Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to Draft Day Sports College Basketball 2022. This is episode number 13. Will we be lucky here in episode 13? Well, we've got a real shot at least in getting a single recruit. Now, I'm in a very weird situation here. We're still very much in the middle of the season, yet being that we are independent, being that we didn't get into a conference this season after that shock relegation, we find ourselves with our season totally done and everybody else is still playing. Just the 6 teams that we are a part of in the independent status, that's it. We're the only ones done. Everybody else is still playing. So there's a lot of recruitment time, just behind the scenes work trying to get some recruiting done. But meanwhile, with only 2 players, period, with only 2 players that have any interest, that's as far as we've gotten when it is coming to recruiting. And the only good thing about that is, even though my assistant coach is quite bad, like myself, he's only got 2 recruits to talk to. Therefore, he's actually been fairly successful with those 2, finding out bits of information in ways that I can't, especially when I've been spending my time either trying to get McInnes or Thompson, the 2 point guards on our list, to get interested in us, only to have that fail in the same way that everything was failing last year. But anyway, Babel, through these various conversations with the assistant coach, this is what we're looking at now. We now know everything but the academics and playing time. Location is what he primarily cares about. Parent info, well, not as much happening there, but parent control is minimal, meaning Babel, he's going to make his own decision. And being that we are close to home for him, we've got a very legitimate chance at recruiting this player. Now, we are only number 2 on his list, and we've been number 2 on his list for quite a while now, but he's progressed from cool to warm to hot, and that progression has largely happened thanks to the assistant coach. Now, he's not a good player. I mean, let's just face facts. He is one of the lowest ranked players out there. But for me, I'm going to get the bulk of my players through the transfer market this season again, presumably. And this is all about the future. He is not the future of the program. He is the future of my coach's ability to recruit players going forward. So finding success with him, continuing to make that push, that's where I progress as a coach, right? We were a 1 last season. We're a 6 this season. If we add another 5 points again, if we are an 11 come next season, or say we double it to a 12, regardless, if we get above 10, it's going to get that little bit easier come next season. And maybe the whole there's no interest and I'm trying to push them to cool, maybe we get to 10 plus, and it might be a rarity, but we might actually begin to succeed at it a couple times next season. All of that plays into it's going to get easier. We can't get any worse, right? So he is like a pebble that you're placing down in your stone path. It's not much, but it's something. Meanwhile, I continue to have to just get through the season. And it's just weird to be in that state. We have reached a week into February now. It's going to be mid-March when we have our contact period. And unless I have any more sudden updates of like Babel going from warm to hot, unless we have any more updates along the way, that's where you're going to see me next. Into March, update time. First off, Greg Turner, the top recruit. Surprising, honestly, that a 3-star recruit from Oregon, clear across the country, has been recruited by Duke. And especially when he's only a B. Really surprising. But he has committed to Duke, so that's the first one off the list since the contact period earlier on in the season. We're also just about a week away now from the next contact period where we liven our chances of getting some of these recruits, in particular Babel. Speaking of Babel, we were worried about his GPA a little bit on whether he would qualify to enter the university. Our minimum requirement with lower academics is just an 880 in the SAT. The SAT scores have come out in the last month and a half, and all of the players on my list, which is literally all of the players in Oregon that have not declared with anyone else, they all qualify, so they have all made it as eligible players, and I'm down to 8 potential recruits, really just the 2. Meanwhile, some other things also going on. We had seen the standings kind of flip on their head on how it was interpreted, and it still seems to be the same thing as it was before, which is the net ranking. Excuse me. And the net rankings shift throughout the season. Now, for us, we haven't played, so our net rankings shouldn't change, but that's not the reality. You're rated on a number of factors, including your strength of schedule, meaning your opposition, the teams you played against. If you play against a team that was 6-0 at the time you played them and lost, it's not going to look all that bad. But then, if that team, who at that point becomes 7-0, starts losing every game the remainder of the season, as they drop to 7-23, well, their position, their net ranking is going to drop significantly, and therefore your ranking is going to take a hit because your strength of schedule gets worse. That means our net does change, and we're actually in a pretty tight battle. And from the looks of things, as we're not organized by overall and we have no conference win-loss record, we do seem to be organized by net. And even though we are equal on second best record of the independents, we are now in a close battle between North Andover, who were just 5-10, ourselves, and Stephenville, separated by just 7 spots in the net rankings. And at the moment, anyway, I'm only 2 spots above not gaining promotion for the coming season. So there is still some concern, and with middle of March, the bottom end of these net rankings are going to get fairly well locked in, you would think. But not necessarily, right? It still could change via the tournaments, postseason tournaments, so there still could be some sort of alteration to where we're at. And it's possible we're going to be stuck as an independent for another year because of something completely out of our hands. Hopefully that's not the case, but we will keep an eye on it. Meanwhile, another thing, I've had one update here, finally. First update to the arena capacity. If you remember way back episode 1-ish, maybe episode 2, but I think it was episode 1, I mentioned that the channel subscribers will dictate the arena capacity. I have updated that now. We've added roughly 100 to the capacity now as more subscribers continue to get on. So if you want to see this arena capacity continue to climb and you're not yet a subscriber, there is one incentive to do so. If not, the content itself being a reason for you, you could be a part of the butts in seats in our stadium. And one last quick update here before we get into the actual contact period, with no other changes seeming to happen at this point, is I have started the arduous process of fixing the teams, the school names, the mascot names of teams around the league. I took the time to fix another dozen or so from the couple that I had previously adjusted. So that is a work in progress now, and as this series goes on, slowly but surely, we will get all of those corrected. Let's push forward and get into that contact period and hopefully get at least one recruit signed on to come to our school. Before I've even begun the contact period, as we enter it, Jermaine Babel has decided he will attend our school. So we have our first recruit of the year. Now, he's no Tyson DePina. Hopefully Tyson DePina is still with us because, well, here's how we're kind of looking on that front. One measure of things you could expect. Players that are happy, there's no reason to believe that they would leave the school and transfer out. Players that are unhappy, you would think there's a decent chance of those players opting to transfer. Even if in reality, if you're in the worst program and you try to transfer out, why would anybody in a better program want to take you when you weren't good enough in the program you were in? But in some cases, it could be the opposite. Maybe you're too good for the program. And that's definitely a worrying part for us. But looking at the player profiles up here, there's one pretty big giveaway, and that is the bottom left corner of each player card. So you can see Rodney Wallace is happy. The two guys that I told you about that have been fighting with each other all season long, Singletary and Ramaj, they are very upset. But Ramaj is a senior anyway and a walk-on. I couldn't care less. But Singletary, as a junior, there's a chance that he's going to be so ticked off that he will leave the program. I think the reality of real-world situation, a Singletary knowing that he hates Ramaj, but has no issues with anybody else, no other players, none of the staff, the program itself, would stay. Because Ramaj, as a senior, and as a walk-on who's not playing anyway, is going to be gone. So his hatred, his reason to be upset, will not be around any longer. That's real world. That's not likely to be in the coding, though. That realization, that understanding. In the coding of the game, I would surmise that Singletary is going to be pissed at Ramaj, and he is unhappy, and therefore he wants to leave. And that he is a likely candidate to transfer out here during the offseason. Now, the whole rest of the bottom row, they're all happy. We're good there. This one scares the crap out of me. Jose McIntyre, who has been so good. He was the one starter last season who really struggled, but he was a true freshman, and he played okay. This year as a sophomore, he's been good. 9.7 points per game, 2.1 assists per game, 5.7 rebounds per game. For us, he's a solid contributor, and I would hate to lose him. He's unhappy. Why? I don't know, but he's unhappy. We got to watch out for that one. Steven Jennings was happy, but not so happy now. Same with Hollis, but he's a senior. Doesn't matter. Wade Dyer. He is unhappy. That's worrying also because JoJo Hollis, the senior, is leaving. And Wade Dyer has actually been a strong contributor this year. He's got a 10.68 in the player impact estimate off the bench. He has been our top bench scorer. And honestly, he runs the offense better than Hollis does on limited minutes, less minutes. But he's still just a hair worse than Hollis actually is. But in certain respects, he's been better. So he would not be bad to step up into that point guard role for next season with someone young coming in or a transfer coming in. If they're outstanding, taking over the role, that's fine. But I don't want to lose Dyer. I'm worried he's going to want to transfer out after not starting this season. And same issue, right? This is not the whole, I'm a sophomore, he's a senior, he's the starter, he's graduating, I get to take over, I'm going to be the starter next year. I'm going to get my minutes. This could be more of a, I didn't get my minutes. Wah, 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 boo-hoo. I'm going to transfer to somewhere that's never even going to give me the light of day and I'll give me garbage time only. Makes perfect sense. DePina also not terribly happy. Oh, and, maybe he's going to be the starter. Actually, he probably will be the starter, but at shooting guard, not at point guard. So on the recruiting front, among the independents, we're still very much near the bottom. North Andover have yet to recruit anyone. We were right there with them until we just got Babel to sign. But you can see how low he is rated. Okay, all 5 that have managed to get recruits, they're all 1-star recruits. None of us are getting 2-star recruits. But you can see our average, the 1.3, you divide everybody else out to an individual average, it's much higher than 1.3. Mississippi Valley State is the easy, perfect example here with a 2.7, double what we have. So Babel is not quality. This is literally all about having the worst coach around and just getting a little bit better this year. It's funny how they're going to stay like this. They're going to be struggling programs for many, 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 many years to come. But we will climb. It's just going to take a while. And we're into contact, so we're going to start with doing location on everybody because, well, I only know anything about Groyer and none of the others now that Babel is done and recruited, which is good because it frees us up to go after some others a little bit more. Now, Steve Thompson, Jeremiah McInnes, and Groyer are my top 3 targets as long as they are available because A, I need a point guard desperately, and B, Groyer is the only one that's cool on us. But as for additional candidates, Rick Williams obviously is the best available, but I think our odds of signing him are next to none. Getting after a 2-star is already pretty aggressive for our program. So looking at the remaining 3, the best player available is Grady. A decently high-ranked 1-star guy seems like something not totally out of our reach, something we can get after. It might not be our biggest need. I'm not worried about biggest need. I'm worried about just being able to recruit anyone. And so we'll take what we can get is the theory, because I'm going to most likely be in the transfer market regardless. We're bound to lose some guys and need to replace, and we're bound to not suddenly fill up all of our scholarships through this method. So we might as well go after the best reasonable target. All right, here is our home results. Home visits, Michael Grady, nope. McInnes, weren't too impressed. Parents, that's not terrible, right? That's a nothing on Groyer, which means we've probably even lost him on Cool, and it seems like we got nowhere with these guys. None of them, well, actually, there's only 2 scholarship offers in there, right? So 2 of them could have actually made a decision with somebody else. Let's see how it is as we set up the new one. We are down to nothing. We signed the one guy interested in us, the only one left that is interested in us in the entire country. Can you believe that? Out of all those athletes, one player, a single player in the entire country has any interest in coming to our school. Ouch. Even community colleges have an easy enough time recruiting people compared to us. I'm that bad as a recruiter. And we have reached the Final Four. The number 1 team in the country this season, Temple. The Temple Owls are number 1 team in the country. They are Conference D champions. They are 35-1 this season, just killing it. Their prestige only a 60 out of 100. They are having an exceptional season. Can they carry on? Can they get through and win a championship? We'll find out here shortly. But here is a very brief look at the path. North Carolina Tar Heels into the Final Four, beating Michigan State. Temple beating up on Kansas State to get there. But they also did luck out a little bit as they had to beat a 4 seed and a 6 seed and didn't have to play the top teams. The 2 seed and 3 seed both missing out. In the Dallas region, Oklahoma State getting through over Michigan. And in the Boise region, surprising, Kentucky getting in over Wisconsin. But with those Final Four matchups set, all 4 1 seeds have made it to the finals. It's going to be interesting. I would probably say North Carolina would be the favorite, but I don't know how the teams actually are this year, just based on prestige of the programs and where they're at recently. As Kentucky, they're down ever so slightly from where they've been in years past. And they are out, losing to Oklahoma State. The other one flashed by too fast to see how it went. Wow, Temple did knock off North Carolina. That team is having a phenomenal year. And there it is. The Temple Owls have won the NCAA Championship, the most unlikely of teams. You would be surprised in a normal year to see them as a top 8 seed in a regional tournament. So, hugely shocking. But they've been number one. I mean, they only lost a single game all season to get to this point. So, huge performance from them. They have won this year's championship. Meanwhile, I feel like I've won a championship just by recruiting a single player. Let's see if we can win something else and make that 2. Seems unlikely considering literally nobody else has any interest in coming to us, but we have a little bit of recruiting left to do before we get into that transfer portal. Not surprising that being that we do not have a conference, there is no conference awards for the independents, meaning the only awards that we are eligible for are the entire association ones, as in the best players or the best coach in the entire country. And here is that list, and oh gosh, shocking, we didn't make it. Temple's coach, no surprise at 37-1 that Dane James has won Coach of the Year. Also, their guard Kevin Jennings at 22.5 points per game has made the list of the best players this season. 3 Kentucky players. No. Let me take this back. 3 awards have gone to Kentucky. It's the same player. It's Marcus Yeagle, who has won the Norton Award for Best Player, the Wolverine Studios Award for Player of the Year, and Freshman of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year was Andre Pina of Nashville, and then that's what you got right there with Kevin Jennings. That is the March Madness Most Outstanding Player, as in the tournament MVP. So after finishing second in the conference, but having the very precarious, it was actually a tie between second, third, fourth, and then actually seeing things reevaluated based on our RPI ranking and seeing that we were on the bubble and it was very tight, our season review, the objective of don't finish last in conference, apparently has failed. Last place, coach. Tisk. Now, it does look like we have a contract extension, which, of course, I'm in a cannot be fired state, so I shouldn't be facing that challenge anyway. But that is a worrying sign. If we go and look at the standings, we can see why. Our RPI, our net ranking, we have slipped. The order has flipped. North Andover, who was a 275, I was a 280, and Stephenville was 282. Following the tournament, which can definitely impact things, the bottom end you would think shouldn't be impacted. But like I said, that strength of schedule can alter greatly. If a team barely makes the tournament but then makes it into the Sweet 16, or if a team was outside of the tournament and then won the conference tournament and just made the tournament, or you have a run in the NIT, the second tier tournament, or whatever the case is, teams that make a run or make it to tournaments that shouldn't have, it's going to alter the strength of schedule because they're going to get a big boost out of being there, being present, or making those runs. And likewise, the same could be said of if you enter the tournament, say, ranked number 2 in one of the regional tournaments, and you get knocked off by the 15 seed, your ranking's gonna plummet. It's going down, right? I'm the one to suffer. I didn't do anything. I didn't play any games. We've stayed at that 6-9. We've stayed at that tied for second. And yet here we are, finishing 5th in the conference apparently, even though we finished equal on second. looks like we are not getting promoted to Conference V despite doing enough. And yet not enough. It is what it is. Looks like my rankings, my skill set has been updated as well. So looking at player development, it is now a 7. Offensive skills, a 5. Defensive skills, 7. Scouting, still a 1, which I do not understand why scouting has not gone up at all. I've gone and looked at film 10 times every single week. I've gone and scouted players live probably 60 times already, and yet my scouting ability is still a 1. Feels like that's a little bit broken. But here's the big one. Recruiting, 13. 13 in recruiting. Big 1-3, episode 1-3, and we have apparently struck lucky with number 13, as that is our new recruiting ranking, and it is by far our best. Now, it's still terrible, okay? It hasn't suddenly gotten good. It's a 13 out of 100. But we've gone from a 1 to a 6 to a 13. That is a substantial jump. And at that rate, you would expect us to be in the mid-20s by next season. And getting to a point where we will be able to get after some better players in the not too distant future. I'm happy with that. Job security remains at 100% despite failing this season. So yes, I do have that set up effectively, that we will remain in our job. They wanted me to win 10 plus games this season, even though we were only playing 15. Reality, that is a benchmark that is set on a 30 game season or 28 game season. They wanted us to win. They wanted us to go 10-18. At 6-9, that's definitely on your way. That's 12-18 over a 30 game season. So that would have been enough. We would have done enough to achieve the goals. However, circumstances. The new contract gives us 5 years remaining, though, at $84,000 per year. And I will be letting all 3 of my assistant coaches go, by the way. They're all 1 stars across the board. They can't get any worse, even though they're technically not as bad as me. But at the very least, I can replace them with like for like. We'll be able to hire somebody, guaranteed. It's just, how good can we get? And because we can't get any worse, and we potentially could find better, we're going to go for it. We're going to try. Recruiting's a 13. Haha, I can recruit better talent now, including coaches, right? We'll go for it. Might as well. It's worth a shot. There's going to be a big shuffle in the coaching market this year. I'm not. I never will. But just show you that this is the most prestigious schools, and they're all looking for head coaches. That is a huge, huge list. I mean, most of the Conference A and B teams, that's the vast majority of the Conference A and B teams, are all seeking new head coaches. So it's going to be a completely different head coaching setup come next season. I forgot that my assistant coaches all had 3-year deals, so they actually all have 1 year left. But there is one important thing here. Hamilton, Johnson, Walker. Take a look at this. Here they all are. So we can actually take a look at how they fare right now. Hamilton, 29 on offense, but all 3 of them in the 20s. You can see defense, 27-30 for all. Recruiting, almost identical. Scouting, player development, and their reputation. You can see that all 3 guys are incredibly similar. And definitely not good. But definitely better than me. My highest rating is a 13. That is worse than all of their lowest ratings. I mean, a 21 is the worst of the bunch. Now, it hasn't necessarily taken us very far as of yet, but in, I believe, what was our final week of visits, Jeremiah McInnes actually had a positive response. I've gone through a couple weeks of these, and yes, McInnes is the first one to come along and actually say it was cool to come meet my family and I. So we'll see. That I think that at the very least has made him cool. We'll take a look. All right. Well, he did not sign with us, McInnes. We have reached the end of the recruiting period, and we got one. We got one. We're going to be entering transfers next, end of April. All right. So recruitment rankings for the year. This time we are very much at the bottom. Last year was a bit better, even though we only had the one in Tyson DePina. He was a decent one-star recruit, and that bumped us up the list a fair bit. North Andover is dead last. They did not recruit anyone. They may be the only one. They may not be the only one. But we are definitely, with our just one, and our very weak one at that, with Babel, 337th out of 358 programs. That's a lot of programs, by the way. But yeah, that's where we are. So, okay, let's go ahead and look at those promotion relegation results. Are we in? No, they did. They went off at the net rankings. Central Arkansas, who actually was the best, they had the best record, and they were clear with that net ranking. But then Mississippi Valley State, who we were equal with, but had a better ranking by a fair bit, was second. And Stephenville, who was right up until the end of the March Madness tournament, they were fifth. North Andover, who had the fifth best record, was fourth or third, and we were fourth. But that all flipped around in those final couple weeks, and sure enough, it was those net rankings. So now we know that the independents are based off of your net ranking, and nothing else matters. Okay, disappointing. We literally finished second in terms of the standings. And we ended up fifth thanks to the net rankings. And yeah, second, third, and fourth, I mean, it was same record. And fifth place was one game behind. It was tight. But the net rankings are what they base it off of, meaning we are going to be an independent again next season. Very disappointing that it ended up completely out of our hands in the manner that it did, and that we had to sit back those final months of the year and watch the net rankings fluctuate with no control over it. Nothing we could do. Okay, so we remain in the cellar, in the gutter, to duke it out for another 15-game season come next year. Okay. Next up for us, though, is the transfer portal. And at the moment, besides the whole just battling to rank up through the season and trying to get back up to Conference V, which apparently is going to take us another year, Florida A&M, Prairie View, Delaware State, and Chicago State are the four that will be joining us as independents come next season, along with whoever that last place one was that finished at 3-13, Alcorn State or something like that, or 3-12. Despite the league getting through those 15 games, for us, literally the biggest thing right now is the transfer portal. And the way we were able to get Hollis quite easily makes me hopeful that I can do a little something more aggressive with the transfer market compared to what I did last season, which was literally just go after anybody, hoping that they would side with us. We went after somebody in Hollis who didn't have interest, and we got him, and was a better target. He wasn't great, but he was a better target. So we might be a little more aggressive with that transfer market. And we're going to have a lot of scholarships come next year, depending on what happens here with this transfer market. But there is going to be some shakeup with the squad. We also don't know who's entering transfer portal. That's going to change things further yet, but big things coming. And for me right now, that's the biggest thing for at least the next couple of seasons until we can actually start effectively recruiting players. But again, jumping to a 13 is going to do nothing but help in that cause come next season. That's going to do it for this episode. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.